I believe that that really kind of comfort with uncertainty is really only possible where there is certainty in other areas of that particular job, position, or role. So you need trust within the team members. They need to trust that their job is safe and secure. They need to trust in their leadership and their management. And I believe if all of those things are certain and the trust is secure, then they can embrace uncertainty. Do you agree or disagree?
I 100% agree with that. So even though I'm a big fan of being intentional about injecting uncertainty into personal life, organizational life for the benefits it creates in terms of learning and innovation, I'm also definitely not saying that all uncertainty all the time is always good. In fact, I think that's not true. So I agree with you that if you are going to be putting people into a situation where they need to do things that are uncertain, you also need to give them some sense of safety and security and certainty so that there is ballast, right? And I think especially interpersonal trust, not necessarily in the sense of trusting people. I mean, ideally, you trust all your team members as people, but the kind of interpersonal trust that I think makes the most sense to think about in an organizational context is trust in the competence of other team members, right? You should know that everyone else on your team is reliable in doing the work that you expect them to do, on which your work depends. So if you know that, then you can go off and do whatever it is that you're doing, and you don't have to worry about someone accidentally or intentionally sabotaging you by simply being incompetent. The second thing you mentioned was trust in the security of the job. I would actually modify that a little bit. The people who are most okay with, who prefer constantly being challenged, who are therefore the most adept at learning and are best at innovating and adapting, I'm not even sure that they need to trust that their job is secure, because they're actually the people that, you always know people like this who are so good at what they do and so good at learning to do new things that if they lose a job, they simply go find another one and it's probably a better job. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure that you need to have like total job security to be able to embrace uncertainty as a team. What you do need to do is you need to have certainty in your own ability. And I think that comes from constantly testing that ability and having evidence both for yourself and for other people that that ability is legitimate. And so, paper qualifications are, in my opinion anyway, they're super hollow, because often you meet people who look really good on paper, but they're actually not so great when you meet them, and they're not very good at executing on stuff. And they're also not necessarily very creative or fun to work with. But the moment you work with someone who is enjoyable to work with, really good at what they do, very creative, and also operationally competent, no matter what, in the future, if you have someone, if you need to work with someone and you want to collaborate with that person, who do you think of? You don't think of the people who are good on paper. You think of the latter type of person, right? So I think that's the second thing. It's like not trusting that their job at that company is secure, but trusting in the fact that they can always find a job, and so they can play with the ones that they currently have. And then the third thing you mentioned was trust in the leadership and management. I think this is incredibly important. I think leaders and managers are often put in the position, whether truly or merely implicitly, of having to present the front of always knowing what's going on and always having things under control. And a lot of the time, even when things are literally spinning out of control, they have to put up this front, right? Like everything's fine, I'm in control, things are going to be all right. And I think people who are part of organizations often realize when things are not going all right, even when leaders are presenting this face that things are going fine. And so one big part of trust in leadership and management is simply leaders and managers being honest about what they have control of and what they don't have control of. And I won't name names, but we can see, especially in political leadership right now, exactly this situation happening, right? A national leader, perhaps more than one, says things like everything's under control. And the rank and file of the organization, which is to say everyone else who lives in the country, they look at what's going on and they're like, this guy has no idea. And does that create a sense of security that allows you to deal with productively the uncertainty in other parts of your life? Absolutely not. I think exactly the same thing happens in, I would say, the vast majority of organizations, because most leaders think that they have to do their jobs well, present a face of complete competence, when in reality, it would be much better. And we can also name now some other leaders of some other countries that are just very transparent about the things that they have control over and the things that they don't, like the Prime Minister of New Zealand, like Angela Merkel, for instance. So I think there is something to learn about trust in leadership and management. It's not about presenting the face of complete competency when it is not true. It is about explaining very clearly and transparently what is under control and what is not, so that people underneath in the organization have the ability to trust in leaders that they are transparent about that.